Hello, everyone. How are you? That's nice to hear. How are you? Good. So we're here for a session called Mastering the Lion's Paw, How to Build a Privileged Access Workstation. And I don't know how many of you went to a PAW session the day before yesterday, which was done by Microsoft. I totally think they did an awesome job. I mean, at least they're giving the technology that we need. And that's a really, really good thing. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach on this. Although I do agree that their stuff was really good, but it's for most places, it's a bit of a hardcore overkill. If you're shooting missiles with your laptops, or if you do a typo and it takes down North America 1 from Azure, I totally get it. I would rather have most of you using the concept of a privileged access workstation, and even in a smaller environment, just try to get something out of this session that will help you to secure your environments. Yesterday, I spoke to a lot of people, of course, because of this session. So I spoke to a lot of people, and they were like, yeah, well, the problem is that it sounded like really fancy and stuff, but we're not like, it's not that critical. Now, the problem is that actually, it's not about how critical it is. The thing really is that you have to get this stuff right just to make your management work. It's not even about the security. So hopefully we're not going to overlap too much. I tried to just change everything so that we wouldn't. If you have no idea who I am, my name is Sami Laiho, and before we get there, there's a few people who are like, oh my God, don't do this. This session would not exist without a few people, so I just want to give credits to them. Now, Chris Gardner and Tommi Nieminen. Really? Yes. This wouldn't, honestly, this thing wouldn't exist without you guys, so I had to have you on the board. So my name is Sami Laiho. I'm a senior technical fellow from my own company, which is a great thing because I can come up with my own titles, which means that I'm a senior technical fellow only because Mark Rusinovich used to be a technical fellow when I started teaching at TechEd. I'm also certified in all sorts of stuff. I got 2.6 pounds of certificates. No idea how many, but I'm certified in a lot of stuff. I'm going to give out swag. If you have no idea what järjestelmävalvoja means, that's your shame. You should now. If you don't, we got really cool mugs that we're going to give out. After this session, on this side, which yesterday ended up in a chaos, but we still have quite a few of them, so come and get your free mugs. It's a really funny story. You know, I don't know how much you've ever done like public speaking training or stuff like that, but before getting into the topic itself, it's kind of funny. This ended up being my trademark. That J18 stands for the first letter in the Finnish administrator account and the number of letters that we have after it. I couldn't fit it on the mug, so I had to come up with something. The story behind why this freaking Finnish thing came up to be my trademark was actually because when you do these talks, what I do is I was trying to fit in a joke. The original reason was I had a joke, and I thought it would be really cool to share with the people in the audience. And the joke was about Gollum. I needed to get from Gollum to get I needed a segue to Gollum. So I started thinking on how the hell would I get to Lord of the Rings in an IT session. And then I remembered that there's this weird thing, I don't know if you knew it, but actually J.R.R. Tolkien was a linguist. And he actually, when he was researching different languages, he built the language of the elves in the Lord of the Rings based on Finnish, my native language. because it's one of the smallest language groups in the world. No one would understand it, so he wanted to build a new language on top of it. I'm at the speaker room all the time speaking Finnish, and it's really funny because all the US guys are like, they're Skyping home and they're like, I have to be quiet here because, you know, people are listening. The good thing for Finnish is, voi alkaa puhua suomea ihan koska vaan ja kukaan ei ymmärrä sanaakaan. We actually call it voice over IPsec. It's just like natural encryption. Okay, so I used the segue. What's the original joke? The original joke was, tonight we're going to have the party, the real party. What about tomorrow morning? Who knows what a Gollum hangover is? Gollum hangover is when you wake up gray and naked behind a rock and you lost the ring. All right. Few things to learn about Finnish. I can't do a session here without having these small minor things. First of all, I just took these up from the internet. It's like, because people tell me all the time that Finnish is like a really difficult language, but I have to disagree. There's like so difficult stuff in English. I just love this. Excuse me, may I just disturb you for a second? In Finnish it's hei. It's it's not that difficult, guys. The other thing is that today we're going to have the party, and you really have to be we really have to be careful with the Finnish guys, because you guys, you know about 6-packs. Some of you know about 12-packs and stuff, but in Finland last summer we actually started also selling 1,000-packs. That's not even a joke, sadly. So they're selling 1,000-pack of beer. I showed this in Estonia. Who's from Estonia? Someone is, I know. No, you're not. Okay, anyway, I showed this for the Estonian guys, and I was just laughing my hat off with the concept of having 1,000 packs of beer, but they were really, really detailed in this. They saw this and they were like, did you see that it actually says that it has 1,080? Look, no. It actually has 1,080 half-a-liter cans of beer. Also, there's a deposit. I don't know, haven't seen it used here, but in many countries you get a deposit, so meaning you have to return the can and you get some money back for it. So the price is actually 2,000 euros, but there's 149 euros worth of deposit. You'll have to take the cans back. And to make it really Finnish, the thing here is, why do people buy this? Because they get that bucket on top of it for free. Finnish people will buy anything if they get a bucket. So, why do we need to do this stuff that I'm going to talk about? First of all, like I told you, you can get to the privilege manage workstation stuff. Privilege access workstation stuff. You can get to that based on security, meaning that you need to do it. You want to secure your stuff, but it's actually a concept that people don't get, which is that it's actually meant to be done this way. I'm quite sure many of you will take a remote desktop connection to your servers. You can take an RDP connection to your servers. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in the situation, but I would be amazed if you haven't, which is the fact that you're trying to RDP into a server, and you have to call your colleague and say, there's no more sessions. I'm out of it. Can you log off the freaking box? Okay, now, that's not that difficult when you're talking about like 10 admins. What about if you're working for a really big enterprise? I got a customer that has 200 admins, for example. So it's kind of weird that there's 200 admins that are calling each other saying, can you log off the box? Can you log off the box? Can you log off the box? Because everyone's just calling everyone. Well, I don't know if you read user manuals. Sometimes you should. And this is one of those times. Back in 2000, when Windows 2000 was introduced, which was the first server that had RDP connections built into it. Before that, you had to have NT4, and it was a separate edition, Terminal Server Edition. That was the first time they introduced this. Now, if you look at the user manual, it says these are for emergency purposes only. On the other hand, remote server administration tools was introduced. That has 16.7 million licenses to it. That's why that's the thing that should be used by the big companies. They have a lot of admins. No worries, 16.7 million admins, you'll never hit that. But RDP connections, 2. Just think about the numbers, honestly. Like, how many admins you have fighting over 2 RDP connections? They're just emergency use only. It's not just the problem of having too few licenses, but there's also a problem with having like new stuff coming up. Jeffrey Snover, by the way, he's a technical fellow. Now the joke's on him. Used to be on Mark, but now Mark's the CTO of Azure, so that joke went away. For a moment, I had my title at LinkedIn was Chief Senior Technical. No, Chief. No, sorry. The CTO is Chief Technical Officer, so it was Senior Chief Technical Officer. Jeffrey Snover. Oh, I really like the guy. He's superb. He came to Finland as well. He did a really nice session in Helsinki. And that must have been really weird because he went on stage in front of the Finnish people and he goes like, I am so proud to announce this, but just like a week ago, I was appointed the position of a technical fellow. And the whole crowd starts laughing at him. And he's like, okay. They remember the old joke. Anyway, Jeffrey says that you should treat servers like cattle, not like pets. So Microsoft is pushing into this direction where you don't go on RDP and pet every server one by one, but you actually manage them with tools from the remote side. Actually, the next server, I don't know how much they've talked about it here. I honestly don't know how much they talked about it here, but the next server, which will go into this new way of having a new version of the server 2 times a year, like you have for a Windows box. I mean, like a client box. That new server actually doesn't have a GUI on the roadmap. And there's no plans of having a GUI on that one. You can do the LTSC, which is the long-term servicing channel that they call it now. That has a GUI, and it doesn't have to be upgraded a few times a year. But the actual server itself, that's going to be the core version. There's no GUI. So I'm quite sure, if you didn't look at Nano servers, I'm quite sure that you kind of like, you're forced into buying this concept that I'm talking about. They will do it for you. There's actually a kind of a good demo on this. I'll show this to you. I have a few devices running here on Hyper-V, and I know yesterday I looked at my EVAs from yesterday, which was very nice of you, but the problem, of course, being that none of you can see anything from the screens. It's like the biggest room in the freaking building, but it has the smallest screens of the freaking building. I don't want to complain too much, because this goes recorded, so I don't want to mention stuff like the food is really bad and stuff like that. So. Anyway, this is just a standard 2012 R2 server. Now, if you look at the group policy editor on this thing, and let's say I have two missions here. I want to do a thing which might be good for many, which is I want to disable the web client service. That client service is the one that connects to things like SharePoint. So if you don't use SharePoint, there's a real problem in Windows which still exists, which is the fact that the web client service, which really is a web dApp client, that service makes, I don't know if you've seen this, but sometimes when you connect to an unknown IP address with a UNC path, so you go / / IP address / share, it takes ages. Why? Because Microsoft decided with Windows 7 about like 10 years ago, they decided that most probably when you're looking at an unknown IP address, the most common thing to be there is SharePoint, which is freaking weird. Maybe in another universe, but anyway, now Windows has this hard-coded thing inside of it, which makes it to first think it's SharePoint, which means it tries honestly, if you're into any kind of network tracing, look at the trace, because the trace shows you it'll first try WebDAV. HTTPS, it must be HTTPS, it must be HTTPS, and as Windows always wants to try everything 127 times, which I have no idea why, but it tries it for 127 times, like, is this HTTPS, is this HTTPS, and then it's like, oh shit, this might be like a shared folder. Wow. Well, so it switches to SMB. Now it tries an SMB. Oh, wow, that's there. So if you disable the web client service, it skips that part. So that's my first goal. I want to disable the web client service on all of the machines in this domain. And my other mission is, which is totally against the Finnish economy, but I want to block people from running Angry Birds. You know, I used to go on stage in TechEd. I started speaking at TechEd in 2013, so I used to go on stage like, you know, we got this company called Nokia. Nowadays, it's not that much to talk about. So I try to stick to Angry Birds and Supercell. That's what brings most money into our country nowadays. So I want to block Angry Birds, and I want to block web client. Let's do that from the server. Now, I've done one thing beforehand, is I have a Windows 10 client, but I've been so proactive that I've actually updated my group policy to have the newest ADMX files, which is the thing that people mostly believe, that your group policy is up to date as long as you have the ADMX files that are upgraded. They are, trust me, they are. Let's take whatever group policy we have here. And I want to do those two things. So first of all, policies, Windows settings, security settings, system services. Let's go for, oh, there's no web client. Okay, what about the other objective, which was to do app blocker? So we should have application control policies here. And we're going to do a rule. Let's actually go for a packaged app rule, create a new rule. Next, everyone will be denied of running Angry Birds. So we'll do select here. Oh. Now the ideology in this is that the server, like the group policy editor, doesn't just use ADMX. The group policy editor uses the base OS for the values that it can type in. You can't, this is not a security thing at all. You can't do Windows 10 group policy management from a server. It's not just like, I know many of you are like, that's because you don't want to do it this way, but the thing is you can't do it any other way. Group policy editor uses the operating system below to read the values. You can't do this stuff from a server. I know most of you guys have jump servers. Well, not most of you, but many of you have jump servers. Keep this in mind. You need to have a client to do group policy management. Same goes for MDM. In the future, you will need a Windows 10 client to be your management workstation because it has those values. It's not just I don't, like if I want to do it or I don't want to do it, but you can't do it, okay? Now, after this, we can switch more to the security topic, okay? So just shut these down. And we will go forward. Privilege hijacking. Why don't you want to have people on your machines that have admin rights? There's this old trick in the book which says that if you have a compromised workstation, that compromised workstation will lead to very bad things. Now, how do you compromise a workstation? You have no idea how much fun I had yesterday having my theater session, because it's so cool, because it's at the expo. It's only 20 minutes, but it's still like, oh, if I speak loud enough, Microsoft's listening. And I tried to tell them, like now I'll tell you, because this is better, because it gets recorded. So, like everyone, you do understand that if you upgrade Windows 10, it disables BitLocker. So, like, there's no other way than prevent anyone from doing unattended upgrades of Windows 10, otherwise you're totally compromised. Now, many times people don't think about it like, okay, so we only do upgrades of Windows 10 as long as they're in-house. They need to be inside of our building. They're protected by our firewalls and stuff like that. And then people totally forget about internal threats. There's a lot of people out there who don't like the shit that... by the way, that's not going to be on the... Do you know how that works? I learned it yesterday because I tried this. Let's speak Finnish too. I tried this yesterday. Now, I thought that this was AI. Now, I don't know. It would be so cool if they would answer to this. But, you know, they are actually sitting at the Hyatt. So all the audio from these theaters and all the sessions goes out. And the audio is streamed to these people who actually type it on their machines. And then it's sent back. There's no AI. It's people sitting at Hyatt. Okay? It's really cool, like how they actually transcribe this, because it would be like cool to talk to them. But I've been trying this, so I think they're paid so well that they don't reply. Well, anyway, sorry for because that's what I thought was I said, Shh, and I thought it's going to be there because either AI understands that that's a bad word, because in Finnish if I would say paska, I'm quite sure it's not there. That's a word for shit in oh. Oh, I got it there. Oh, that took a while. Think about how much they're laughing. We're like, oh my God, I tempted to write this. Oh, the people you meet in a bar. Anyway, privilege hijacking. The old trick in the book was to use, like, let's say we got Windows 7 running somewhere here. We can do this on Windows 10. Actually, that's the only thing that's running, so let's use Windows 10. So we got Windows 10 here, and that is a impossible task to see. Let's try this again. Oh, I started these machines before I connected to the AV here, so let's try that again. We got a Windows 10 machine here. Now, if I have compromised this machine, I had a lot of sessions on how to compromise, so I'm not going to go into that. Oh my God. So let's say I've compromised the machine here. Now, this guy who's running the show, he wants to be someone else than he really is, which means the old trick in the book is to run a tool called Process Hacker. Oh, didn't elevate that. show details. So if you've been to my session yesterday, you might have heard about it, but this session, this tool was for a guy called Alex Ionescu is the guy who wrote this tool. He wrote it because he can't put stuff that he wants into Process Explorer. So you should have both. You want to have Process Explorer, of course, but you also want to have Process Hacker, because it has stuff that Process Explorer will never have, because it's considered to be black hat stuff, okay? Now, if I look at this, the weird thing in Windows is that as long as I'm an admin, I have the local privilege. Actually, let's show that. secpol.msc. I have, based on the local security policy, me as an admin, I have a user right, which actually is a privilege. And that privilege is to impersonate a client after authentication, which means I can become whoever I want on this box. That's not that bad on this single box, because people are like, yeah, you know, there's a few things to impersonation. One is that you can only do it after authentication. Well, of course, on a Citrix box, this would be like really, really bad. But the good thing is that you can only do it after authentication, which means that I have to trick someone to get on the box to use their rights. Okay, so if someone gets on this box, I can just, let's try it this way. We will, let's open up a CMD, find a fast way of doing this. So let's see what kind of users we have here. We got administrator, guest. Okay, so let's create a new one. We will create a user called J18, and his password will be query1. Oops. Wrong language. We'll add it, and local group administrators. English is so difficult. Administrators, and then we will add J18 to that group. Okay, let's do a run as. We'll run something, so we'll run as user J18, and we'll run CMD, okay? So, and the password is query1. So now they're creating a profile for that guy, and this guy here is now running as J18, cool. If we go back to Process Hacker, there is a CMD running here, and even more important is if you look at the username, that's the other CMD. So if we go back here, we got CMD running as J18. Now if you go right-click, do miscellaneous, and run as this user, run whatever you want, but let's do cmd.exe. Now, who am I says I'm J18. Because I'm an admin, I can become whoever I want, because it's a privilege. And it's actually not like you can go to the user rights assignment and say, let's strip this weird privilege of admins. Because if you look at Windows, if you actually even look at Linux, which is, of course, close to my heart as being a Finn, Linux or Windows, both of them use this concept to connect to shares. If you want to touch your My Documents, but it's actually redirected to a server, think about what happens. You talk to your SMP client. Your SMP client says, okay, we're going to take this request that you have and we're going to talk to the server. Now, who's on the server side? Your SMP server is LAN-man server, the server service. That server service has to touch your My Documents. Now, the problem is the server service is running as system. So we can't do access control checking, because that system is trying to touch your My Documents. How do you get to that share is by impersonation. That service impersonates you. That SMP server impersonates you, tries to touch that My Documents so that we can say if it's access denied or not. So it's not something you could take away from Windows. Your remote printing, shares, nothing would work if we didn't have the concept of impersonation. So you can't just strip this away. This is a privilege that anyone who's an admin can do. I was doing a, Middle East tour. I went through different countries doing security sessions. And by the way, I've never ever in my life had this experience before, but it was so cool because, not cool, because I was at the airport of Amman, the capital of Jordan, and I was going to Beirut in Lebanon, and I was going to take a flight, and I had two guys from UK with me, and they booked their flights by themselves. I was booked by the company that was paying for the trip. And I asked them, like, should we go out for a dinner? Because I love Lebanese food. It's really, really good. So when we get to Beirut, should we just, like, go out for a dinner? They're like, yeah, sure. It's like, what time? Well, my flight is in Beirut at, like, 8. So maybe at 9 would be okay. They're like, oh, what time does your flight leave? Like, 7. So does ours. And we both leave at 7 from the same airport to the same destination, but the weird thing is that our flight is there at 9, but yours is there at 8. That's weird. Like a really short connection. How do you make this short a connection from 1 hour to 2 hours? Like that plane is gonna like crash if it flies that slow. So I went to the guys who booked my flights. Excuse me, why does my flight take only 1 hour and my friends here from the UK, their flight takes 2 hours? What's the reason? Well, you know, there's the war in Syria and they're going to fly around the Syrian airspace, but you're going straight through. Like, what? Can I change? Anyway, it was so funny. I did this demo for a guy who was running a Citrix farm on that session. He actually thought about the fact of having a playground like Citrix. Like, our guys want to do whatever, let's put them on the Citrix box and let them do whatever they want because they only have sessions. But if you think about this fact on a 10,000 user Citrix box, that anyone can actually become anyone. That's a bit dramatic. Now, whenever I show this demo, there's going to be someone who's like, Mr. Laiho forgot to mention one important thing, which is that by design in Windows, impersonation only works over one hop, which means that I can impersonate Mr. Admin or J18 here on this box. But I can't use that command prompt to destroy the Active Directory. Because impersonation only works over one hop, meaning I can impersonate the domain admin here if I want, but I can't use his credential to connect to anywhere. So I've only compromised this one box. Impersonation was thought of being a security thing to attack against, so they did this stuff. They were like, okay, so we'll just make it so you can't use it over the network anymore. So that token is valid on this computer. Now, so that means like, I can't be that, it's not that bad, okay? Now, let's try this the other way. Now we got J18 here, and we got the admin here, and what if, I actually know I'm gonna miss my timing on this demo, which means that I think we should sign out this guy. You know, when you start any Windows 10 machine, if I log on with J18, you know what's it going to say? It says, oh, hello. Nice to have you here. We have a few things to do now. This won't take long. Oh, it's taking longer than we expected. It's every time the same freaking thing. So, we can start this, so let's just do other user and local J18. He's going to log on to this box. He's going to be the other user here. And then we can, well, hello. That's what I thought. So while he's doing that, we can just take the other computer here, which is a Windows 7 machine, and we'll start that off as well, because we'll need that for the demos as well. Now, where's Windows 7, and that's the other one. This might take several minutes. At least they're becoming more like honest with this stuff. Got a Windows 7 box here. Let's see if we can. Oh, that was actually faster than I thought. Even better, then we can do it on Windows 10. So this guy here, you can't see anything of this command prompt because it's on the really, really small screen. And let's try this again. So you can't see that, so let's do properties and font. Let's do 80, Lucida console, bold, that's good. Let's do screen text, gloss black. This is called the ninja mode. Get black on black. You don't need to know what you type. You feel it. We did this on. The coolest thing was we did this with Johan Arvidmark from Sweden, and we combined stuff. So I did my ninja mode, and he took PowerShell, did the same thing, but he changed the PowerShell default error action to be a reboot. So you don't see anything you type, and if you do a typo, it boots the box. It's like, it's hardcore learning, like, you gotta know your shit. Okay, so now we have, let's see who we have here. We got J18 is now logged onto the box, okay, that's fair. He wants to become the admin. So if you do, let's see if we can do query sessions. So we got J18 logged onto the box. That's good. Now let's log on our domain admin as well. So we'll have to switch accounts here. J18 has only hacked the local box, so he wants to become the Mr. Administrator of the whole company. Okay, that's for Libitum. Yes, that's the correct one. Now we got this admin logging on, and he comes to fix the computer. He does something like he just like, I'm here to fix the computer for this guy. He called in to the help desk and said his PowerPoint is not working. I'm here to check it out, and he checks everything seems to be okay. Okay, but while this happens in the background, J18 does his tricks. Now the problem with let's change to J18. So many users here. I hope you're still following through. So J18 is here. Now J18 could use the process hacker 2 to impersonate, but that would be only compromising the local workstation because impersonation doesn't work over 2 hops, okay? But now the funny thing that was introduced in the Windows in Windows 2000 is, what if I run Task Manager? I'm a local admin. I will run Task Manager, and Task Manager has users here, and I would try to steal our domain admin session by saying connect, and it would ask for a password. That won't work. Now, Mr. Administrator is nothing compared to Mrs. System. So let's do psexec sed cmd.exe. Which means I'm going to run this CMD as Mrs. System. Now Mrs. System does Task Manager, and we'll go for Task Manager, and we'll go for users, we'll go for admin, right click, and we'll just say connect, and oops, now we're admin. So that's no impersonation. I'm now the full-blown admin. I can take control of the whole environment. And the domain admin. There's no restrictions like over 1 hop or stuff like that. I can always do this because Terminal Services allows what's known as shadowing. You can shadow on sessions to help people out. That's what they thought. But if you think about this, having a workstation in your environment and anyone logs onto the box, Now, you don't want to have your endpoints having admins, okay? Because this happens, okay? Let's get back to the slides. I'm quite sure we're going to miss every freaking timing on this. So, if you want to have a tip, there's a cool tip. Sysmon, which is part of the sysinternals toolkit, the newest tool added to sysinternals, Sysmon can actually detect this. So if you want to run, and Sysmon can be running in your environment 24/7 on every freaking box you have. I have it running on a site that has a client that has 350,000 seats. They're running Sysmon everywhere, all the time. So if you want to look at something that you should do for your security stuff, run Sysmon, it doesn't cost you anything. If you got like stuff, they've been talking about advanced threat protection and things like that, that's very cool. The free version of that is Sysmon. So it actually can fix this, or not fix this, but detect this. Now, how do we actually start doing this? Privileged Access Workstation should be something that's part of every one of your environments, okay? The difference on the approach that I'm going to have here is I think there should be different levels. Even people here that have like a 10-client site, you should still have the concept of a privileged access workstation. So I'm not going to go so far as they did yesterday, saying that this is because you're running a nuclear plant. It's not. I don't like the idea of saying that this is just for people who shoot missiles with their computers. This should be something that's in every one of your environment, okay? Now, if we start looking at how to do this, there's like different levels of doing it. Platform level 1, you have a workstation that is either privileged or not. After this session, if you don't do anything else, at least do this, okay? So at least start looking at your workstations in a way that this is an IT guy, he does bad stuff when it comes to security on his box. Let's call this a privileged access workstation. Doesn't need to be more than that. If you're actually getting to like heavy stuff, then we start talking about having 2 different operating systems for this. So there's like, you could be running a VM now that you have Hyper-V, or VMware, or whatever. You could be running those, and then you run your stuff on that VM. Now, Microsoft says that you have to run the privileged access workstation on the physical one, and then you can run the normal stuff on your VM. I can't do that. My job, mostly during the day, requires editing videos. I can never ever run Camtasia on that VM. Whatever they say, whatever kind of machine they give to me, I need to be able to travel. I fly on a plane, way too much. Last year I actually flew 1 hour more than a Lufthansa pilot, so that's it's like heavy traveling. I mean, I need my stuff to be carry on. I don't want to have a huge workstation with me. So it has to serve these different purposes, and one of them being it's very light to travel with, but I can't have my stuff running in VM because I can't do Camtasia. I do Pluralsight courses all the time, so I have to do editing all the time. That just doesn't work on a VM. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt stuff. I tried my best, okay? Now, why does this happen? Well, this happens because there's this kind of like, I don't know if you saw these t-shirts they were giving out at the expo, which I thought was so cool because it just said, I am root. And it's so cool. Like the best t-shirt I've had in a long time. Anyway, I am root, meaning the immutable laws of security state that if you have physical access to a box, you own the box. It's not your box anymore if someone else has access to it. Which means that it's like you can never ever truly have a secured workstation. Well, they have their like shielded VMs and whatever they showed in the previous demo. But the problem will always be there that if you have physical access to this box, you can do crazy stuff. I think we started this, yeah, we started the Windows 7. Now we can actually, yeah, let's use this. Think about this. People, I teach troubleshooting. And when I teach troubleshooting, people, they're like, okay, Sami is a nice guy. I'm kind of like on this planet. But when they really think I lost it, is when I start telling them that, you know, like after this course, you have to go home. And whenever you see a blue screen, you have to go like, yes! It's like, what? I don't only just have like software to produce blue screens, but I really buy this stuff. Let's see, connect, oops. Connect NMI, that's non-maskable interrupt. And we'll see the pictures here, and we should see this one. I buy this, and I buy a lot of this stuff, okay? So it's a PCI card, you plug into a machine, and the only purpose it has is if you hit that button, it blue screens. Now this is where I lose my audience. They're like, that weirdo just lost it. But that is one of the most important tools I have for any really mission-critical computers, is having an NMI switch, non-maskable interrupt switch. You have to have it because when your computer gets like really brain dead, you have to be able to blue screen the box. You were able to do it before with like having a registry key set, and then you would press Control scroll lock, and it would blue screen the box. That was fine when we had PC, when we had the old PS2 keyboards, because PS2 is so high on the food chain of IRQs that even if the computer was like almost brain dead, you could still hit the key. Nowadays we use USB keyboards. And USB is so high on that stack that if your computer's brain dead, so is your USB. There's a hot fix that says we'll fix this, but you can't fix the reality of USB being so high IRQ, low priority that it can't blue screen the box if your OS is brain dead, okay? So I buy these. Now you can do this with PowerShell. And to be fair, VMware Tools has its own. So I try to use those if possible, but I have these on the hosts, on the operating system below. So let's just think about this. This demo 7.1 here, and we're going to do PowerShell. And I'll have to give it the finger. Here we go. And we got PowerShell. So if you think about this, that's a Windows 7 box. And let's do debug. Come on, wake up. Nope. Debug VM. Name is demo 7.1. Inject non-maskable interrupt force. So the ideology in having the privileged stuff on your box instead of a VM is I own the VMs. I don't know how much you know security, but security has these different rings. We talk about Windows running user mode, which is ring 3, and then we have kernel mode running as ring 0. Hypervisor is considered to be ring -1, and then UEFI, the firmware, is considered to be ring -2. Now, if I own a lower level, I own everything on top of it. And you can't do anything about that. So there's really no way of protecting that thing against stuff like this, because I own that hypervisor. I kill anyone I want. It's like the coolest thing, I'm not very good at PowerShell, but the coolest thing you do after any session, if I run courses, for example, the last thing you do is you actually, what I do on a class where I'm running a lot of computers is I'll actually do just like get VM. That is absolutely the fastest way of getting rid of your VMs on a big farm. It's just everything dies, okay? Well, we also have the I don't have to do this. I saw people in the session yesterday raising their hands even at the place where Microsoft asking like how many computers you need to manage your environment, and there were people that still raised their hands with 4. So they walk around with 4 different computers. I'm very used to that, having 2 computers, because I worked a lot with the Finnish military, and they do have to have 2 different computers. The other one is for surfing, web, reading email, and the other one is the privileged Access Workstation that you use to connect to your environments. But that's the most dramatic version of this, okay? So we have a nested VM, we owned it, we did that. What about jump servers? Well, that's what I'm not gonna ask this either, but that's what most people use. That is, statistically, we know it, that's what most people use. You have a server where you connect with RDP, it has paid licenses, so you can connect more than 2 users, and you manage your stuff from there. That's totally fine. That's a lot better than doing everything by logging in as a domain admin and blah, blah, blah. But that is still something that is not considered to be a trusted way of doing it. That's not the best way of doing this, because we have the same problems you saw earlier. You can't do management with jump servers, because they're not workstations that you manage. And as long as you do things with MDM or group policy, you don't see the stuff. I'm not going to say you stop using jump servers. Okay, that's a really good point, and just do it if you really do it. But just keep this in mind, that you will never, ever be able to manage workstations 100% with that solution. Doesn't work. Okay? Now, security baselines. Microsoft has this one, the actual PAW document, Privileged Access Workstation. As I said, that's really cool. This is what they showed yesterday, and honestly, it's just fine for shooting missiles and stuff like that. I know some of you are not laughing at this, because this is your job, that you really actually do work in an environment where if you do a typo, it takes down a data center. So I'm not trying to say that you should not go for the most secure option like they offer. Go for it. If that's you, just go for it. It's like I got about like 5% of my customers are the ones that do actually exactly what they say. It's not only that they want to do it, but they also have to do it based on different kinds of criteria that they have. So you should, don't be mad at me if I'm trying to give you less secure options. I'm giving you less secure options because I believe that the problem with security is that people don't do security because they can't do 100%. I meet this every single day of my work. I meet these people who say, we can't do this because that's not bulletproof. But I hate that mindset, because it's like, remember when we moved from XP to Windows 7, and you have these customers that are like, well, we can't move to Windows 7. Why? Because we have this mission-critical application that doesn't work with Windows 7. Okay, so how many computers do you have? We have 4,000 computers. How many use this app? 2. We can't move to Windows 7? That's the same thing happens with security all the time. It's like, we're going to deploy BitLocker. I have found there's an article on the internet, some guy wrote that you can hack BitLocker. We will not take it. Like, okay, like I know there's holes in every freaking security solution, but why don't you bump up your security 99%, but you leave it at 0? People do that a lot. I'm not saying the solutions I'm giving would be the most secure ones. I'm trying to make the people which are not the 10% who shoot missiles, I want to take that 90% up with their game to get to be more secure, okay? Now, what does everyone really want? They want to have security, usability, and a cheap solution. Last night, when I did this slide deck, I didn't have time to draw a cool triangle, which I normally draw. Security, I believe, is always a compromise between these three things. I hate the old security against usability. But I always tell, whenever we start talking about anything security related, I always tell my customers there are three things. That's the usability, security, and cost. You can only get two, you can never get three. So let's start thinking where we are. You can't have a secure, if you want to have a secure and usable solution, it's going to cost you. If you want to have a cheap, secure one, it won't be that usable. If you want to have a cheap and usable one, it won't be that secure. It's like you can choose two, you can never get three. It's like having a wife, a job, and playing golf. So, what I want to have is we want to have these things in a single box. We want it to be usable, because I want to do Camtasia. We want it to be cheap. We want it to be secure. It's like, when you want to have messaging, an internet browser, and a phone in one package. All those three things in one package. You know where I'm going? I will now introduce, which it's called the PAW. Okay? PAW is a concept of having a privileged access workstation in a very low-cost environment as well. Don't do your stuff with your jump servers. Don't do your stuff. Like against the jump server, I would anytime recommend you to do a VDI. That would be just fine. Do a VDI concept where you have those management workstations in that cloud of yours. That's just fine. I don't like the jump server ideology because that will never ever be able to manage an environment. Okay? So what do we have for this? We still have about when did we start? Oh my God. Okay, let's go through this fast. We have a few configuration needs on this. We need some OS hardware choices. We need some features. We want to introduce security settings. We need to tweak our Active Directory. So actually, let's just go forward and start doing this, okay? First of all, what you want to have is Windows 10 Enterprise 1703. Why? Because it fixes that thing. If you haven't read my blog, I wrote a blog which was read a lot of times. Windows 10 currently, before 1703, every Windows that does an in-place upgrade, you just press Shift F10 when it upgrades, and you get full root access and BitLocker is off. It's the most ridiculous thing ever in the history of Windows. Whenever Windows 10 upgrades, Shift F10, root access, no BitLocker. Even today, if you upgrade Windows 10, it disables BitLocker, which is why I, as a security consultant, I don't have a single. The only thing I can tell you is don't allow unattended upgrades. Until they fix this BitLocker issue, the only thing I can say is do not allow unattended upgrades. Whenever your computer starts upgrading, BitLocker's off. You lose your full volume encryption, okay? So 1703, they fixed the problem. That's what Microsoft said. Sammy, we're happy to come back to you. We fixed the problem. So if you hit Shift F10 on a 1703, it doesn't do anything, but it still disables BitLocker. So they just disabled the command prompt, okay? Always have to have a 64-bit CPU with running a 64-bit edition of Enterprise. I don't care if you run the new one, 1709. Does anyone actually even remember the name of the next edition? Fall up, creator up, fall. I don't know if this really resonates with the US people. At least I have a lot of Scandinavian people here, so you'll get this. But I always thought it would be so cool if they kept the original name. So the original name being, they thought they want to call the next edition, they were going to call it Fall OS, which is It's a perfect name for an operating system. Palace. That wouldn't be so cool. Then they changed it to Fall Creators, whatever it was, okay? So it's not called Follows anymore. Always have a BitLocker enabled and always have a TPM. You should not have PC card slots or FireWire. Now, if you haven't read my blog, read through this. This is a great example of, sadly, even today, Microsoft security baselines that they gave you for Windows 10 just a month ago. They gave you baselines on how Windows should be protected in an enterprise. If you download those baselines, they're just total blah, blah, blah. Not total blah, blah, blah. But read this. Honestly, read it. I really did like half a year of investigation on this matter, but last year at Ignite I showed a demo on how to hack their DMA, although they said it's blocked. And they really hated me for doing it, but luckily I got so good reviews on the session, so they let me back in. But their own MSDN documentation states the required hardware IDs that need to be blocked. But the enterprise Windows 10 baseline that you get that was just available a month ago is still BS when it comes to DMA. It's missing those hardware IDs. The baseline otherwise is fine. Take it. It's cool. It's good. But read this block on top of it, okay? You need to add 2 hardware IDs on those lists. They've been wrong. Well, it's really bad for me. I figured this out last year, and I have to admit that I've been giving my customers false information for more than 10 years. Since Windows Vista, when this became a problem, I've been giving that enterprise baseline. I thought it was really good. But hey, you learn. It took me a while to figure it out, but it has been wrong all the time. Additional features. You should have credential guard enabled. Honestly, you should. That is just a cool Windows feature that everyone needs to have. There are a few problems with different VPN providers. So different VPN providers don't work with this. That was the funniest conversation I've ever had. I don't want to mention their name because they're at the expo, but this one VPN provider and Microsoft. I had these guys in the same table because my customers they want to enable credential guard and it doesn't work with the VPN. Now the problem is I can't debug it because credential guard is so secure as it's in the other running on top of isolated user mode, which is running on top of secure kernel, that I actually can't attach a debugger to that process. So I cannot debug it. The VPN provider and Microsoft, I got them to the same table, and I was like, okay, guys, really? My big customers need the VPN. They want to have your credential card. Let's fix this. So I asked the VPN provider, like, what's the problem here? Well, you know, Microsoft is coming up with this stuff, but they don't provide information for the OEMs to, like, beforehand to be able to fix this thing when this thing comes out. And then Microsoft guy, the perfect answer, he was like, maybe the VPN providers should stop stealing password hashes. Oops. Many of the VPN providers work like that. They do exactly what Mimikatz does. They attach to the LSAS process to steal the hash to be able to do single sign-on. But that's exactly what credential guard prevents. You do not touch those hashes, okay? So it's not really Microsoft's problem, it's the problem of those. Now, you should also run Windows Defender, application guard, that I think should be like the standard for anyone who's running a privileged access workstation when it comes to the new, just a month from now, released 1709. When you get that, try to run, if you need internet access from that computer, just run it in that isolated container. Many of you will not have the choice. I know this very well. Many of you don't have the choice. You cannot connect to internet with a computer that's considered to be a privileged access workstation. Military, for example, there's no way. Those computers that manage stuff, you can never connect to internet. So you don't have to think about this Defender application card. But that's what I told you. I don't want you to be only the people who shoot missiles doing this. Every company should do this. That's why there will be many of you, at least I'd say most of you, who will be running a privileged access workstation, and you still need to connect to the internet, okay? Install RSAT, remote server administration tools, that's the most important. Install SysInternal Suite. And now, why doesn't the future server have a GUI? Because you don't need it, because you have Project Honolulu, which was just announced a few days ago. So you install Honolulu. That's the replacement for MMC plus the new Silverlight stuff that they had. That's what they're going to be. It also allows snap-ins like you had in MMC. So it actually does give the OEMs the opportunity to incorporate their own management tools to that same thing. Because Microsoft had an issue. MMC was fine, but it's like freaking old. And then the Silverlight stuff was just ridiculous because like you don't want to have Silverlight on your servers. Plus, I mean, you don't want to have Silverlight on your machines, and also it's very hard for other people to code things into it. So another Honolulu is the replacement for MMC, the server manager, like all these things you had. Those will be replaced by Honolulu. Go and install it. That should be on every one of your management workstations. Anyway, so where did I put? I think I even installed Honolulu last night. Now the problem is I have no idea where I installed it to. You know. There's one guy who was at the same location where we did these slides. The problem was it actually installs the local IIS component, so I didn't really want to do it on my own machine. And then we had the problem of shooting Edge. It uses Edge by default. I don't know if you like this new concept of Windows as a service. It's really cool. Without any problems, you just upgrade your Windows 2 times a year. Oh, Edge doesn't work after an upgrade. That's not a big deal. The main browser doesn't work after an upgrade. I'm gonna, well, we had the local. It's just so hard because, let's try this. Where was? I think Project Honolulu actually is a. No, that's the executable. I'm not even going to try this if it. No, I didn't install it here. It doesn't work without Edge. I mean, on this machine. So we'll have to figure that out later because I just wanted to have it there because it's the new thing in this conference that everyone should be excited about. Have that on your machines. It's going to replace all MMCs. Okay, fair enough. Prepare your Active Directory. Every Active Directory should be a 3-tier model. You don't just tell your admins to do this, which is the normal one where people say, don't log on to workstations as domain admins because someone at the conference told me that's really bad. You block it, okay? So you will have these group policies that will state that domain admins will never ever be able to log on to any servers or endpoints. Don't trust the people, kill it with the policy, okay? Then you have your server guys. Server admins can only manage servers and apps. They will never be able to log on to domain controllers or the endpoints. And then you have your workstation admins that will never ever be able to log on to data or the upmost layer of power, which is the domain controllers, okay? Take this concept quickly back home. Now, if you look at the settings I have here, I listed a lot of these for the slides, because you can download the slides and then you get my point, okay? So I've got a lot of these screenshots here showing you how you do it. You have to at least have secure workstations, servers, workstations, and domain controllers. That's the minimum dividends that you need to have. This is a picture of my own environment that says deny access to server admins, domain admins, and local account and member of administrators group. If you don't get anything from this session, take that home with you. Block, deny access to this computer from the network, and deny it from that. It's called a pseudo group, and the name is local account and member of administrators group. Why? Because it kills past the hash. Kills local user past the hash. Every one of you should have local admin password solution labs on your machines, but even if you don't, one single group policy setting will kill past the hash. Because then with the local accounts, you can't take the hash and send it to another computer, because it says you're an admin, you're not allowed to do it, which kills lateral movement. Simple trick, okay? Then we have servers. Servers have the same kind of stuff, except they don't allow for anyone that's domain admin or workstation admins. Then after that, we have the PAW, which is the management workstation, okay? The only difference in this model is that this is the only computers in the environment that actually allow domain admins to log on. Because I can't run RSAT on this machine. I can't do group policy management from this workstation unless it's allowed. Windows sadly doesn't have this option of saying let's allow UAC elevation for admins, but not allow them to log on locally, which would be the best thing. I actually solved that by a applicable rule. So let's just go forward a little bit, because we only have like a few minutes left. What I do is my machine here, I always have a limited user. The IPAW's idea is you cannot allow an admin to log on, which means I'm always a limited user. If I run command prompt here, I am Sami, but if you look at my access token, I only have 5 privileges. I can't do almost anything with this computer. I'm just a limited user, and that is one of the most important things in Windows security. You do not allow people to be admins, okay? How do I become an admin? Because I am the admin of the company, which means I need to do management stuff. I do it, many of you have been to my sessions, so you actually know this. I do this by giving it the finger, which means I have a fingerprint reader on my iPaws. My index finger is my limited user, and then my admin finger is this. Which I just love doing as a demo. Because we have a code of conduct for speakers that you're not supposed to do this stuff on stage. I just love giving you the finger. Anyway, so I'll have to give it the finger, and then I think I'm Homer. Homer is my local admin. Okay, so just give it the finger. If you need to have limited users, admins, domain admins, enterprise admins, whatever, you'd still have 10 fingers. So, well, sorry. If you don't, but at least I think like you have 2, okay? Now, how do you block interactive logon is the coolest one. So this is what I do. First, there's few rules on my computer. One is I will never be able to run PowerShell. If you want to save yourself from like malware, that's the #1 thing you do first when you go home. Block PowerShell from limited users. They don't need PowerShell for anything. You just run PowerShell as an admin when you need it. But if you accidentally do something, block it. It's actually blocked by AppLocker here, and actually also blocked by my firewall, stating that PowerShell can only talk inside of my network. Because if you look at any ransomware currently, they all use PowerShell, and they all download a payload from the internet. So why won't just do yourself a favor, block PowerShell from connecting to the internet, There's no ransomware, currently, I mean. They'll come up with different ways of doing it, but it's a very, very simple trick, again, to just make yourself ransomware proof, okay? What I do is I have an app locker rule, which is somewhere here, this one. I don't know if you use AppLocker or not, but I use AppLocker, and you see this list has been evolving for the past few decades, and it's still very short. There's 350,000 pieces of malware found every day. If you don't like whitelisting, thinking the old way, like, oh, I hate it when I have to add every good thing we have in the company, all the executable, oh, I hate it. This every day the new, oh no, horrible. Think about this, that's the list. It's my personal list. I've used that now since 2002. So 15 years, that's the list. Compare that to 350,000 bad things every day. It's a freaking short list. AppLocker is just your most precious friend. Now I have a rule there which says, do not allow local accounts that are administrators to run Task Manager or Explorer.exe. Why? Because that means I can give my engineers that need that local admin access, they can still they install an application and it pops up the UAC prompt asking, do you have an admin account that you would like to use? But as Microsoft doesn't divide that from an interactive logon, then this blocks the interactive logon. If they log on to the box with full admin access, they get a blank screen. If they press Ctrl-Alt-Delete, the only thing they could do would be to click Task Manager, which is blocked, so they will just log off and say, shit, we have to really do what Sami says. Okay? Because that's the problem with the admins, is they start logging in as an admin, because they can. There's a lot of these different rules for firewalls. I listed all of these things in this. I also use IPsec. My friends always ask me, like, you are a security expert. Why don't you, this is my home. This is the most security thing I can do now, is just give you the whole layout of my home. But I still want to show it because, you know, it has a few things to it. First of all, this is my home. I use Unify. I think it's awesome. They won't pay me for this. They should, but it is really cool. Anyway, I use Unify, and this is my small apartment in Helsinki, and I have my Unify, and I let all the people who come in, I let them into my wireless. And they're like, but you're like the security dude. Do you really let people into your wireless with all those servers? Absolutely. Anytime, because I use IPsec. I've used it for decades, and I still do. I will let you in my network, but I will not talk to you unless you have a certificate that I trust. Has a logical network inside of a physical network. I trust that way more than having these barriers of this is a guest wireless, this is a physical, this is my normal wireless, blah, blah, blah. Just join in, have fun in my wireless, but I won't talk to you unless I trust you. The good thing about that is that my wife's computer and my computer, wherever they travel on airports or wherever, they take those rules with them. They leave the physical layers there at home, but wherever they travel, IPsec travels with them. They still don't talk to people who they don't trust. And you've had it since Windows 2000. Built in, doesn't cost anything, kills unknown computers from the network and stuff like that. It's just awesome. The only problem I have here, this is my humble brag moment. The only problem here is that I have this coverage map here. And because the apartment here is fine with 2.4 gigahertz, but the problem is the 5. Because I don't know if you see it, but this is the sauna. And in Finland, the sauna needs to have really good Wi-Fi. And that's a really big problem now, because it's like 100 square meters, and I only have 3 access points. I need to add another one, because I need to get to sauna, have like not just like Wi-Fi, but good Wi-Fi. So that's my problem there. Need to get another access point. Luckily, with these solutions, it's very easy. Anyway, do IPsec. Take exploit card. They just announced it here. It's going to be available in 1709. It's the old Emmet. Skip emmet, forget it, exploit card does what you need, okay? If you want to go further, just add a pin codes to your computers, whatever you need. Should you go device card? I had this conversation yesterday. This is the funniest one I had. I know I'm over time, so I'm going to give me 1 minute and I'll finish this off. First of all, should you go for device card? It's for single-purpose machines. Now, I had this conversation. A customer of mine paid me to be a consultant on site, and a Microsoft sales guy comes in. And a Microsoft sales guy comes in, and he's telling how to do Windows 10, and I'm there to just like either approve or shoot down the ideas. And he starts like, you know, the best thing about Windows 10 security is device card, because device card is like app locker on steroids. And then everyone looks at me and I'm like, I totally agree. And most people should not take steroids. It's actually really bad for you, mostly. I don't get the comparison here. App blocker with steroids. Honestly, like if you're really sick, or that's the only reason you would have steroids. Otherwise, it's illegal. Forget that freaking device card. Whatever they say in this conference, forget that freaking device card unless you have single-purpose machines. Things that can take down North America 1, things that are like ATMs. That's good for that. Kiosks. Absolutely for nothing else. Look at these few links for administrative forwards, protected accounts, and with that, I am quite sure we're done. So now, please, I'm a Pluralsight author. I would love you to check my videos. I'm still in the middle of doing sysinternals learning path. I've done 5. I will do 5 more. Check my own stuff, and if you want the mugs, these guys will try their best to help you, okay? Thank you very much.